They, he always does that. He always does that. And she loves it. It's a great school with lots of great extracurricular activities and just tons of opportunity for a student who wants to really learn and excel. Unfortunately, not all the schools are that way. I'm sure the opportunities are there with most of the schools. But then there's probably some inequities, I would say, in some schools. For instance, Eastern has strong parental involvement. Other schools, like when our children went to Tully, Tully had a huge parental involvement with PTA. And PTA, they provided lots of money for the students and for books, for supplies, for all sorts of things that they fell short on from the school system. So those schools, they're doing great. As far as I'm concerned, the schools that my children have been to have been great. We need to really address the schools that aren't doing so great. And I believe that's where neighborhood schools can help. You know, it's easy to say that we have neighborhood schools now. If you're in an area where you like the neighborhood schools, but if you want to try to get into another school, maybe it's close to your neighborhood, but it's a really good school, there's a lot of competition to get in there. I think competition is good, so I think that we need to try to figure out a way through using neighborhood schools and parental choice to figure out a way to create more competition, I only have a few seconds, I'm trying to explain, to try to create, well, I'll address that next time.
Mr. Sexton.
We have some Tier 5 schools in Jefferson County that the state is saying something's got to happen. Either you're going to, and we've already tried some things, we've moved the principals, and we've moved half of the teaching staff, and we've tried the state's suggested changes that would improve the school, and they still remain at Tier 5 or are at risk for 2 or 3 years. House Bill 176 now allows the setting school board to make a charter school out of a school that they have basically tried all other methodology on. I'm not totally sold on charter schools because I'm a public school advocate, but when you have tried everything else and you're still at risk and the school population is going down, 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 and the support for it is going down, down, you have to make some change that's new. We have some schools that are ranked nationally as the lowest schools in the nation. That's embarrassing. But we have some schools that are ranked in the top 30 in the nation. Now, we either want all the school system to be level and respectable, or we want a few prima donna schools in all levels and 10 failure schools that everybody's saying, I don't want my kid to go there. The neighborhood school concept maybe is what we need to bring back, and maybe we need to cut out the transportation. If you go out of your neighborhood, we don't send buses to Brown School, very successful school. We're transporting a lot of kids a long way to go to magnet and traditional schools. These are things that are not usually said to folks. You know it's true.
Mr. Bell.
The question was?
Had
to do with good schools.
What is your view?
What's our evaluation?
What is your view of the current JCPS school system and where we're headed academically?
Okay, gotcha. First of all, I think we have very, very dedicated teachers, principals, and staff in the school district that are working very hard to be the best school district in the country. I think they're very dedicated to that, and I certainly don't question the majority of the teaching staff, the principal staff, and so forth. We definitely have some schools that are performing very well. We have some schools that are not performing as well. Overall, the system needs to perform better. We need to be the top achieving urban school district in the country, and I would say the top school district in the country. I think we have the resources and the ability to do that. What we need to do is focus on instruction. We need to work with the schools, with the teaching staff, the principals, first of all, to make sure that we have the instructional program to support the core content, the core goals, our core standards that have been established. We need to make sure we have the correct curriculum in the classroom. And then we need to support the teachers with the deans, professional development staff, to teach collaboratively and work with all students in the school. We also need to work with the schools to identify programs to support children that are behind, and not use a pull-out program, but work with those kids in the collaborative teaching environment. The administrative staff of the school, specifically the principal of the school, should be the instructional leader and should be very familiar with what's going on in each classroom and know how to implement a collaborative teaching environment in every classroom.
Mr. Brady?
I feel that the JCPS school system is a bit uneven. And what I mean by that is I can just relate back to my own teaching experience as a substitute teacher, teaching throughout the school system. We have some schools that are very, very good, and I think a lot of that comes from the administrative staff, the principal, being able to set that example. However, I know that one of the things that I encountered as a substitute teacher was I went to a school that was very good school, great kids, and I sat there for 3 weeks as a substitute teacher teaching social studies. The problem with that class is that they had no books. Well, I had one set of books, but they couldn't take the books home. I couldn't, as a teacher, I had to spend 45 minutes of my hour and 15 minutes with the students, having them read side by side in the class and read the chapter that we needed, and then turn around and discuss the chapter we just read. I would have liked to have been able, as an instructor, to say, go home and read this part of the chapter and come back and let's discuss. And by other schools, those kids could take home books. So it's very uneven. And that's one of the things that was cited in the curriculum review that the superintendent just initiated and actually just got some results back. But also another thing that's uneven is the students themselves. JCPS has some very unique challenges that no other school district within the state really has. For example, we have 10,000 homeless students. So we have 1 in 10 of our students that doesn't have a stable environment, and they don't know where they're going to be from one night to the other. And schools are the only stable environment that they have. So what I'd like to do is see is more of a reinvestment in our family services and family resource and youth services centers to be able to provide wraparound services, not just for the student, but for the entire family, to be able to overcome some of the obstacles that impede student achievement that we cannot address in the classroom. Yes, we have risky services all throughout the school system, but they're uneven as well.
Mr. Sexton, we'll start with you with the next question. This is a twofold question, again, from our audience. We appreciate the questions. Both in with the PTA. Do you believe that PTA should be the umbrella for parent involvement? And do you believe that every school should have an active PTA?
Every school should have an active PTA, but it should not be the overall umbrella. If you have a large high school, I keep going back to high schools, you have probably 20 sports. And a lot of those folks are not interested in PTA. They're interested in the sport that their son or daughter's in. Now, the PTA can cultivate the entire community, and you can call yourself the umbrella, and you can call yourself the advisory to the principal. But booster clubs, athletic booster clubs, and drama clubs, and art clubs, they're there, and the interest is very important to support those curriculums in the school as well as the sports. So you can't force PTA. PTA has to cultivate the other organizations, and they can do that.
Mr. Bell?
Probably an unfair question. I worked with PTA for 12 or 15 years and I'm an avid supporter of the PTA at the local, state, and national level. PTA is a huge advocate for kids and a huge advocate for parent involvement. So yes, I would support PTA being involved in every school. I definitely support the fact that the PTA is responsible for the SPDM elections for parents who serve on the SPDM councils. One of the things that hadn't gotten a lot of discussion is that parent involvement through the SPDM, which are the oversight of the election is through the PTA, has a significant amount of input into what's going on in the school. And Mr. Brady and I understand his concern about textbooks, but it's the SBDM that makes some of the decisions about how many textbooks they have in the school and which textbooks are going to be available for which classes, because they have the budget and make those decisions. But anyhow, with the PTA, Mr. Sexton's point about parents being involved in the extracurricular activities through other booster clubs and so forth definitely needs to be involved, but that doesn't need to take precedent. I mean, you can have both in schools. PTA has always been hugely supportive at the state level on dealing with legislative issues that help the school system and help parents and help kids in schools. So it's important to have a strong organization. I would totally support it.
Mr. Brady?
Well, as a PTA member myself, my wife and I both are PTA members for our son's school. I feel it is very vital to have a strong PTA and have that parental engagement. I think that one of the things that you're seeing from a PTA perspective is you're seeing a large decline in PTA membership. And one of the things that I hope that will reverse that will be when we go to a 13-cluster assignment plan, because parents won't have to travel as far to get to their school that their son or daughters might attend. I think that, yeah, I think PTA should be an umbrella to a degree. Once you get into the middle school and most definitely the high school level, you do have issues with having booster clubs. And I was in band when I was in high school, so we had band boosters, and that was a very important part. And I think those two can work side by side. Not one has to dictate terms to the other. But I think especially when you get down to the elementary schools, PTA should be the lead organization on that. Now, one of the things that I'd like to see is a little bit more uniform information about PTAs throughout our elementary schools. Some PTAs have a very active PTA and have a website and are very organized. Other PTAs don't. And I'd like to be able to see some help given to those other PTAs to be able to have some good organizational some skills, but also organizational infrastructure to be able to recruit more members and get parents more involved. As far as the SBDM issue that was just raised, that's something that was actually came up within the curriculum audit, and I believe that I don't think the PTA really they play a role, but not a huge role in this. And the fact that I think that particular decision-making process regarding what curriculum our students have from an SBDM level really needs to be looked at and changed. It's unfair to hold all of our students to the same standard but not provide them all the same resources.
Mr. Robertson?
If you want to get something done, you get PTA parents. I know that. But by the same token, like others have said, you can't necessarily force everybody to be PTA. You can't necessarily do a PTA umbrella over the whole city. But I think that if we, one good thing, I think if we went to neighborhood schools, I believe that you would see PTA membership go up. And the reason why is obvious to me, is that if you had parents in a local school where it's closer to them, I think it would be easier for them to get involved rather than trying to get off work in the afternoon or evening and drive across town for a PTA meeting, or ride a bus that's been provided for you to go across town for a PTA meeting. To me, it seems pretty logical if you go to neighborhood schools, you're going to have much better PTA involvement, much more parent involvement.
Mr. Bell, we're going to start with you this time on tax rates for Jefferson County taxpayers. I think most people are aware the Board of Education has had to employ raising some of those revenues to offset losses, if you will, from the legislature and the funding from the state. If elected, would you continue the course that we have seen by the previous boards and those actions, or do you think that steps should be taken to reduce costs in the school district to make up for those shortfalls?
Well, first of all, I support the action that the board recently took when they adopted the new tax rate for the school system. And the question you ask is a very complex